So this is part 3 of a practical guide for teaching distance learning via Tandberg. In this video, we are going to talk about just the very basics on how to get started. Now, I have a special guest with me for this one. I thought he was going to be a silent partner in this venture, but it turns out that he wanted to be on screen. So this is Mr. Alex, and he's going to be helping me out, making sure I tell you guys, the truth and everything. So anyway, this is part 3 of 8. The first thing you need to know is how to activate the system, and it couldn't be any easier. In order to wake up the system, all you need to do is touch the Tandberg control panel, and it'll prompt you to do this when the system is off. When you do this, what should happen is typically all the TVs will turn on, and the cameras will come to life, and you will be projected on all 4 screens. That is, the main camera, or the instructor camera, is usually the one that's activated when you just turn on the system. Now, if you don't come up on all 4 screens, or if one of the TVs doesn't come on, or if something like that happens that's atypical, it might be a sign that there's some sort of technical issue that could be easily resolved. I would recommend going and talking to someone, finding the support personnel and fixing that problem before class begins. Now, the default setting, that is until you connect with another class, is going to be the instructor camera, but you can change the source options that you're using. So you can go from the instructor camera to the document camera to the computer, etc. Switching the sources can be done either using the control panel or the remote. And I recommend using the control panel for this action. So in order to switch from the different, or with the different types of things, you simply press the screen. It's a touch screen, and so you simply press what you're wanting it to look like, or you're wanting to come up on the screens, and that should change all 4 screens until the classes are connected. So here is my tip number 2. You should check each source that you are planning to use that day in class to make sure that they're operating correctly before class begins. And if they're not, contact that local support personnel and they can help you troubleshoot the issue. As you get more experience and as you teach more in this setting, you'll be able to troubleshoot them yourself, but it's nice to have a little guidance when you're starting out. So how are the classes actually connected? Well, a call is made via the internet, and it connects the 2 classes, and typically this is going to be done automatically. So you shouldn't have to connect them yourself. It's set up at the beginning of each semester, and they should be able to, or the classes should be connected just automatically. And usually this happens a few minutes before the official class time. As soon as the classes are connected, you will see a change in the screens. Now, if they aren't connected by the time class rolls around, that's when you can try and make the call yourself. But once again, I would just support your local, or I would ask your local support personnel, and they can help you with that. So when the home and the away classes are connected, this is going to be what happens. Whatever you were projecting before, and automatically would be the instructor camera, but it can be whatever, is going to be on one screen, and the far end source is going to be on the other. That is usually the student camera. The camera that's facing the students on the far end is going to now be one of each pairs of screens. The screens on the far end are going to exactly mimic what you have on your end. And so they will be seeing in one screen whatever is projected on your side, and they'll actually be looking at themselves. Now, one of the things that I recommend, or that I try to do, is to always have the instructor camera on when the classes are connected. So that way the students see me at the very beginning, and they kind of know that everything is working and everything is right. And you usually say hi and exchange a few words before we get started. So here is my tip 3. Have the instructor camera on when the classes are connecting. That way the first thing the students see on the far end is you. Take a few minutes before class to engage with those students on the far end. Just asking them, how's it going and whatever. And it can be kind of fun. So it's a good time to build some rapport with the students on the far end. Now, here are a few common issues that I have found over the course of my time when classes are connected. And what I'm going to do is show an image of what it kind of looks like and then talk about what's actually happening. So here is one thing. The call was connected, and this was the instructor camera looking at me, and then the other camera was just this. Well, what's happened here is that on the far end, they simply haven't booted up the system. You're just looking at an empty classroom. And so maybe the students just aren't quite there yet, or maybe the door's locked. If this happens, what I would do is I would call the administrator on the far end and get them to, open the door and turn on the system and so on and so forth. This is something that actually happened quite a bit to me, and so it was a normal thing for me to just call them up and say, hey, could you, open up and just get the system started in classroom B or whatever it was. Often the screens on the far end are turned off, and so even if the classrooms are connected, they won't be able to see or hear you. In other words, the system on their end needs to be woken up just like you woke up your system. Like I said, if this happens, the easiest thing to do is to simply call the far end system administrator and ask them to set up your class. And it's super easy. It takes like 2 minutes. So here's another situation. Now on this one, you can see that the screens on the far end are off, and so the system does need to be woken up. There's no students there. So once again, if this were to happen, I would just call the system administrator. Now, another thing is, notice that right now the main camera on the far end is on. That is, it's kind of projected at what would be the instructor on that end. Now, what you want is, when you call the system administrator, is to get them to turn on the student camera so that you'll be able to see the students that are there. You can also get the system administrator to adjust the camera to where it's pointed, just at the students that you're wanting it to be pointed at. If you have only a few students on the far end, you might have them zoom in so that you can see the students a little more up close. Here was one that was kind of funny. I was like, whoa, what happened? When I saw this, the classes were connected, and I saw this thing that looked like a bunch of static. Well, it turned out that this wasn't actually static, but it was just that the camera was facing the wall. And in the classroom that was on the far end, they had this carpeted wall, and so it made this image that kind of looked like static. So what needed to happen was somebody on the far end needed to turn the camera so that it actually pointed at the students. So anyway. Once again, how do you resolve this problem? Call the system administrator on the far end and just ask them to set up the classroom. Oftentimes they're going to do this automatically, but it's super easy. Definitely make sure before the semester begins that you have the phone numbers for the people that you'll need to contact in case anything like this happens. Thanks for watching.